Hi. She says, I saw you sitting down over here. That must mean you want me in your lap.
Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
You know, today's kind of a special day for me because 6 years ago today, I was in a bit of a car accident. And a lot of people have asked over the years why I have this hanging out of my ear. Well, this is hearing protection.
Yep.
It also works for listening to my phone and a lot of other things. How do we find out that I had migraines that were set off by noise, Irene?
We were having a good day. We went down to Home Depot. We'd been shopping for a while. We were standing in line to check out. And somebody in line within 20 feet of us dropped an iron pipe on the ground. I mean, even if you don't have migraines, that's enough to make you want to hit somebody with an iron pipe. It was just, you know, it's a monumental sound, a large iron pipe hitting the cement floor. And before we could pay for the stuff and get out to the car, you had already handed me the keys because you already had a full-blown migraine.
Yeah, I've never been a person that had migraines before the car accident. I have a laundry list that I'm not going to go into of maladies from that car accident. To say that it's changed my life is a significant understatement.
Changed mine too. Collateral damage.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
You didn't plan on it.
No broken bones, but a broken brain.
Right, right. And it's not so uncommon, actually. We were chatting with somebody at the event we went to who has had multiple traumatic brain injuries over the years and sometimes has really bad days. And we actually gave her some good hints. I don't know who she's seeing. I should have asked her who she's seeing for a physician because I could recommend a good one of those too. You know, we told her about Henry using the hearing protection because when we go to an event,
the worst is when people are pounding stakes in the ground. We go to medieval events where we use medieval pavilions and you hammer stakes into the ground. Mostly they're iron or steel stakes.
Right, so it's loud.
And it's loud, and it is sometimes rather uncomfortable. Fortunately, over the past 6 years, it's gotten better for me. It's not perfect by any sense of the imagination, but
he has a pair of earmuffs that he can wear that really, I mean, I have to knock on his head to make sure
I can't
yeah.
I can't hear when
But we told the
around.
other person we were chatting with that was a big ticket, and we let her try on his earmuffs, and she's like, oh. You could just see her relax. The level of noise at the event was bothering her. Because there was a generator running to provide electricity for the central area, just all kinds of stuff. And it was loud. You know, and sometimes during setup and stuff, it can be really quite loud.
I did a show a few years back that was really prompted by Jason at Cog Hill Family Farm. He was kind enough to let me borrow a few clips from his I Can show. And really that for me summed up my attitude towards trying to get over this brain injury. I have a lot of issues still going on. I'm mostly functional most of the time. So it's just one of those things that happens. But our journey here has been interesting because I guess really like we're working on the wax injection system, vacuum wax injection system. We could go spend, I just looked it up this morning, $12,990 to buy a system that's all put together. And
the fancy system is more than that.
Oh, it starts around $18,000.
Yeah. Some of them just about brush your teeth for you. It's pretty cool, actually. I've seen some of these in action, and they're just amazing.
So there's kind of a constant theme throughout our journey here on our homestead, and that is you can either give somebody money to hand over a completed solution, or you can spend your time making a solution.
Right. And sometimes you do a combination of both. There's been a couple of times when we hired somebody with a front-end loader or something like that to do some work because we simply needed big work done that would have taken forever with a wheelbarrow and a shovel.
Weeks.
Weeks, months, years. But it's always that trade-off. Do you spend the money or do you spend the time? And right now, the reason we're working on the wax injector system for me is because right now in my business, I'm spending the time to accomplish some things that really shouldn't be quite as time-consuming as they are.
It's a terrible waste of her skills and her knowledge to have her hand correcting mis-injected waxes.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem becomes at some point you also have to raise your prices, unless you want to work for $1 an hour, which most of us don't. And it's always one of those. I talk with other people who do this sort of thing for a living, whether they're making clothes or whether they're making jewelry, and you have to look at your overhead. You've got a building you're living in. What is that building costing you? Are you paying for electricity? Are you paying for heat? Are you paying for water? Oh, you might want to flush the toilet, so you probably need all that sort of stuff. You have all that to look at. Plus, if you're making clothes, you're buying the fabric and the thread and all the other bits and pieces you need for your clothing. There's strings and trim and all kinds of stuff that you need. And if you're making jewelry, it's all the different metals. I just got a shipment in today that I'm sure the UPS man hated me because it was about 50 pounds worth of stuff.
I wasn't too happy picking it up.
Right, I forgot to mention it was probably going to be in. Well, you knew when it was going to come in, but I sort of forgot to. I was usually trying to remind him, and I forgot to mention it. And then he went to go pick up stuff today and went, oh, this thing weighs a ton. And I'm like, yeah, probably about 50 pounds.
And it was about 50 pounds.
Yeah. And I probably will try not to do that in the future because they just about managed to bust it open. They'd split the tape. And this wasn't coming from a huge distance, but it was, I have to buy the metal and I have to buy I did buy a couple of cool little tools and which should help with things. So you're doing this trade-off in terms of where you spend your money and how you spend it. And it's like yesterday I made a couple of specialty tools using thermoplastic to help with holding some of the things I need to be able to hammer on, because the hammering process puts a lot of jarring on your hands, and I'm just trying to eliminate a little bit of that. And I actually tried them both out today, and they work really well. I may remake the bigger of the two, but the little one works spot on. So, and it's not hard to remake. So,
yeah, we built our house pretty much ourselves. We did 95% or more of the labor in building this place. We did all the wiring, we did all the conduits, we did all of the finishing of the sheetrock. I put up some of the sheetrock. We put up all of the interior finishes. I still have more to do.
Yeah, I do too.
But this is not the kind of place that we wanted to build.
No, we wanted to be able to post and beam. And we knew that there were big posts, as in the form of trees. There's timber, just 50 miles up the road here. There's really good stands of timber, so we were confident we could get the timber and find somebody local. And we might as well have been talking to the cat. She would have at least gone meow.
Yeah, the problem was that at the time that we were starting to build our homestead, there were no timber framers in our area.
No.
You'd have to go about 260 miles.
Well, we were willing. We expected we might have to go to Flagstaff because we expected, we were looking at the houses that had been built here, and most of them are very unimpressive. A significant percentage of people here live in mobile homes and
or modulars
or RVs. We expected to go to Flagstaff to find a contractor who would do the work. We finally found somebody local who was willing to help us with, you need an extra pair of hands once in a while. He doesn't do that kind of stuff. And I was just like, okay, great.
So we looked and looked, and we finally decided that we were going to be the general contractor for this place. And it goes back to, you can either spend your time or you can spend your money if you have the money. So we've been watching a number of YouTubers who are busy moving from their current environment. I'll just put it that way.
Right.
Where they have animals, and some have gardens, and some have both. But a bunch of them are looking at alternatives to build a place because they're going on to raw land.
Right.
So there are people who are looking at doing a tiny home, tiny house. Well, maybe not really a tiny house, just a small house.
Right.
There are people looking at building with earth bags. There are people looking to build with
Straw bales.
straw bales. There are people looking to use hyper adobe. There's all manner of solutions that people are looking at.
Right.
But if you look at how long it takes to do some of these alternative building techniques,
Yeah.
you have to have the time.
Yeah. And we knew at the time that we didn't want to spend that kind of time. We also wanted the place to be very saleable. And because we weren't intending to spend the rest of our lives here, so we wanted to make sure that it was saleable. And we were concerned that if we did something bizarre, at least as the main structure, it would be a problem to sell.
Well, even if it's not bizarre, if you use straw bales are probably one of the easiest things to
They're very expensive
do.
here, though.
Easy to do, and probably have reasonable resale value here. How do you build a straw bale house?
You build a wooden frame and you stuff the straw bale in between the wood as infill. That's exactly what you have to do. And every once in a while we run across somebody who thinks they can just stack up the straw bales like bricks, and that's not what you do. It's just the straw bales are literally just the infill. You are building an entire wooden frame that's open, and then you infill with the straw, which then has to be anchored because it's going to fall over otherwise. And we did look seriously at it. In some other places in the United States, it's a very financially viable way to do it because you can get the wood at reasonable prices, and then you can get the straw at reasonable prices. We knew people, in fact, we came close to buying a place in New Mexico that was adobe.
We actually wanted to. It was exactly what we were looking for, and still, to this day, is probably the best place that we've ever looked at.
Yeah. I mean, it was wicked cool. It had good farmland. It had an upper garden. It had farmland that you could rent, which is a steady source of income. You're not going to get rich on it, but still, it's irrigated farmland. Upstairs in the upper part of the farm also had irrigation rights, and you had a decent garden up there that had been used for years. It would have come with the animals because they weren't going to take them with them.
Right.
So it would have come with chickens and goats and stuff like that. I mean, it was really exactly what we were looking for.
But we learned some really important lessons from the people who built that house. It was an adobe house, and it had a low wall that was about 2 feet or maybe just a little bit, about 2 feet tall. And it surrounded the complete front of that house. And it went down along the sides, but it was open on the back. And I was talking to the gentleman, and we were talking about that wall. And he said the reason why he had that wall was because sometimes when the rains came down hard, he pointed across the road and he said, there's hills over there. And sometimes the water comes down so hard and so fast and sheets across the road and onto that piece of property that if you don't have that kind of a wall, your house is going to be flooded. Yeah,
and that was a very common thing in the Lematar area in New Mexico, that most of the older homes had a 2-foot wall around them. And to get in and out, you sat on the wall and swung your legs over. And every once in a while, some newbie would move out there and say, this is really inconvenient. And they'd cut the hole in the wall so that they could walk through and put a gate in and stuff like that. And usually within 2 to 3 years at the most, there'd be a flood, and then they would be redoing their plaster on their home. And, it doesn't happen all the time. But if you look, there's a lot of areas in the United States, if you look at where the old homes are, they're always up a little bit. It may be a man-made hill, or it may be a natural hill.
Right.
But the houses are on the hill, not just for the view, but for the protection that hill provides. And it's hard to know everything.
Now, you're never going to know everything.
Yeah.
But, you can talk to your neighbors, talk to the people who have lived there for a while. And if they've lived there long enough, and I'm not talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, I'm talking 10, 15, 20.
They might have seen enough.
Yeah, because recently, a couple times we've been talking to someone here about the weather, and they're like, oh, I don't ever remember. And I'm like, 14 years ago, and they go, Oh my
Oh my
gosh,
God, yes.
that's when, and they forget. People forget. I don't forget things like that. I don't forget things like that because I remember that the only topic of conversation at the post office was, are your pipes frozen? Did you break any? And do you have replacement parts if you broke any?
Because at that time, we had a commercial plumber doing some work for us, and that operation had to send a tractor trailer to Southern California to pick up a load of copper pipe because there was nothing available in northern Arizona.
Yep, because they were working on a subdivision. He was moonlighting coming down to us.
So there's a lot of things to consider. There's some channels that have been building a homestead in 100 days on raw land that you have to clear.
Mm-hmm.
We've cleared land before.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have.
And
real clearing, not taking down a little stick somewhere, but cutting trees.
We've done that before. It's a lot of work and it's not fast work. You can go from raw land to a homestead as long as your plans are small enough, or if you have enough money and enough big equipment.
Right, because we're watching somebody right now who's having their part of their property logged off, and those guys are coming in with monster equipment. I mean, the feller bunchers that they're using are just amazing, and it's awesome.
It's fast, it's safer, and it's cost effective for the loggers and for the property owner.
Right, because nothing gets thrown away in that scenario. The trees that make good lumber are sold as lumber, and the trees that don't make good lumber, they're rotten inside, or they'll be chipped and turned into paper. And everything is used for something, so you don't wind up with a lot of junk left over. And even the slash, the branches and stuff like that, are being chipped, and they will be turned into paper. So,
or they'll be used for coal-fired boilers for.
That's true. Yeah.
For energy production.
For energy production. So that's right. I forgot some of the stuff was going for energy production. Right. So I mean, it's a very efficient thing, and the landowner gets paid for that.
We have experience with large-scale woodlots. Mm-hmm. More interesting information.
Trivia.
Yeah, I'd like to leave you with one thought. Irene and I were talking about this morning. There's a saying that you hear all the time. A jack of all trades, a master of none.
But that's not the whole saying. And that saying has a kind of a very negative connotation to me. It means you're not really that good at anything. You got bits and pieces of everything, but you're not top notch in anything you do. But if you get the whole message, the whole original statement, it's a whole different meaning.
A jack of all trades, a master of none, but better than a master of one. When it comes to building a homestead or living on a homestead,
jack of all trades is a good thing to be.
It's a really good idea to have a wide variety of skills, and if you don't have them, you need to have a friend who can help you with them. And
or a lot of this stuff that you can pay people if you can find somebody, and that's been the chronic problem here. And I have heard that from so many people here, that I had money, I was willing to put it out there, and I couldn't get anybody to show up to work.
Yeah.
And we watched Gilbrook Farm doing that. They had the property, they had the money to hire a contractor, and he wound up being his own general.
Yeah, that's the story of if you can find property that is more rural and is less trafficked. There's not a lot of people there. You're going to find it really hard to find a contractor who is willing to come in. Now, there's some parts of the U.S. where you can get a wood framing crew to come in. You know what?
Time to get going. I've got some more stuff to do in the studio before dinner. And I have 3 lettuce plants up now. So
maybe tomorrow you could do a walkthrough of what's going on over in the seed starting.
Yeah, I need to check the greenhouse too.
Say goodbye, Irene.
Yeah, so be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because obviously we're going to be doing tons more.
We're still doing tons more.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of the I'm doing it again stuff You know, that gets kind of old. So until next time, bye.
Bye. Keep brainstorming.
Yeah, because we do, definitely.